All right. So what we're going to talk about here is first up, gesture. What is gesture? You know, it's exactly what you might think it is. Um, it's expression by movement. So, say you have a line, and to indicate movement, you might see this happening. So, each one of these is its own gesture. Whenever you're looking at a subject, you want to avoid copying what you see, and instead you want to analyze what you see. So, for example, take any old, I just happen to find this. So this has a nice pose on the front. We have Kratos kicking some ass. That's pretty cool. So rather than going through and trying to copy the proportions, making everything accurate and in perspective, before doing any of that, you want to start with what is the gesture. So don't copy, but analyze what's going on. Well, at first we have his head. And that right there, what I'm doing right there, I'm going over the surface while analyzing what direction his head is going. Now, I haven't drawn these lines yet. That's just to indicate what I'm thinking whenever I draw it. So, you can see his figure, his neck is kind of coming in, the rib cage. He's turning. His leg goes down here. His right leg coming out. Stepping on the body. He's turning. You want to indicate that turning by going over the surface. Okay, his shoulder's coming way out, and then he's holding this shield. And his back arm coming way up, and you have the axe. And it's pointed in that direction. Okay, so here we go, back over it. One thing at a time. His back shoulder's coming way up. And you have to look at where his rib cage is. His neck's turning. His upper arm. His lower arm is mostly hidden. Rib cage. And his whole body is twisting, see? See, the top of his body is facing that way. It's facing away out of the camera. It's facing off camera. But his pelvis is in that direction. So we need to indicate that. So his whole body is twisting. It's twisting. So this is the front of his pelvis. This is his leg coming out. And you see some foreshortening with the back. And I didn't get it right the first time, and you're not going to get it right all the first time always, so it's okay. Just draw over it. That's where we're going to start out light, nice and light. Okay. We've got the deltoid here. Scapula coming down here. I'm going over the surface. This leg comes almost straight down. Okay? And the foot facing off kind of toward the camera a little bit. And you see this right leg coming parallel to this one, pretty much. Stepping on that poor victim. Okay, so you get the idea. What we started out with was the gesture, or the line of action. And then we came off of that with the extremities, and then we built the forms over it. So now we have sort of a framework to go back in and render the thing, which means do the details. So now it's like the frame of a house. You don't start out doing cosmetic things to a house before you build the frame, the foundation. So that's the same thing here. This is known as construction, and it starts with gesture. So right off the bat, you need to look at what the subject's doing. This one, for example, you can see right on the page that's falling back. Falling back. Quite the opposite of what our good friend Kratos is doing here. He's leaning in. Again, treat these like armatures. Very loose. Keep it very loose and light to begin with. And see his left leg shooting off into space. And his right leg is coming kind of more toward us, so you see a little bit of foreshortening there. His face is facing down and in. And so it's important to pay attention to these parts of the body, the major parts, the rib cage, the torso, the pelvis. The upper leg, the lower leg. So, and it all starts with gesture. If we had just started drawing these arms without first starting with the gesture, then we might have gotten lost along the way. So, and it can look awkward and disproportionate, and you can have all kinds of problems. So, and it's a very difficult habit to overcome, to start with gesture, because right away you want to draw what's cool. You want to draw, the cool skull teeth and the sword and the crazy tendons coming off of this creature. Like notice there, he's missing a big part of his calf. I think it's pretty cool. Your eyes kind of drawn to that, what got you excited about it in the first place. But if you don't start with the gesture, then it's going to look very unnatural. So it's always important to start with the gesture. And the forms on the gesture, we're going to talk about those next. It can essentially, everything can sort of be broken down into cones, cylinders, spheres, and cones, cylinders, spheres, and cubes. But before we get into forms, just going to touch on the most rudimentary kindergarten shapes. The square, the triangle, and the circle.